And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jason Roberts, U.S. Navy retired.
Shouldn't have folded this. All right. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for being here today on this beautiful Memorial Day in northwestern Pennsylvania. And I'd also like to thank Gary for inviting me to be here today. Gary, I'm not sure you know how much this means to me, but we'll get to that in a little bit. We've been trying to make this work for a few years now. My motorcycle club that I ride with since I retired, Freedom Riders, is comprised of a great group of veterans who are very active in Memorial Day events in our area in Connecticut and other places. We, along with veterans from other clubs in our area, and Canadian Forces veterans from the Defenders and other Canadian Veterans Clubs, some big supporters of our U.S. Memorial Day events, like Rolling Thunder in Washington, D.C., visits to Arlington National Cemetery, Civil War battlefields, and various veterans memorials and monuments over the last 7 years. So since I retired, every Memorial Day I've been involved in an event somewhere, and Gary has called and asked me, hey, can you come speak at this event? And I always have to say no. So last year when he called, I said, hey, I'm committed again, but if you can pencil me in for next year, I will get it on my calendar. I won't schedule anything over top of it, and I'll be here. So here we are, and I'm very happy to be here. So what is Memorial Day? The short answer is that Memorial Day is a national holiday set aside on the last Monday of May for us to pause and remember those that have paid the ultimate price and made the ultimate sacrifice in service to this nation to gain and continue to assure the rights and freedoms that we all enjoy in this country on a daily basis. Memorial Day is not about barbecues or a long weekend off or a day off of work. It is not about big sales at your favorite stores or your local car dealerships. Although I'm sure those that made the ultimate sacrifice are not offended by us enjoying time with family and friends, gathered for great food and fellowship, enjoying a long weekend away from work, or would be happy that we scored a great deal on that car or item we had our eyes on, that is not what today is about. They also would not want us to just sit around and be sad all day. However, taking the time like we are here today to honor them, remember them, and teach our children about the importance of Memorial Day and those relative few who sacrifice so much for so many is not too much to ask of all of us. So that's my goal here today, to honor and remember the veterans buried here in this beautiful setting alongside Oil Creek on the outskirts of Centerville, Pennsylvania, and the veterans and others that are no longer here with us physically that sacrificed so much for us to be here today. I'd also like to teach a little bit to anyone like me who didn't know the full origins of Memorial Day, to ensure that we keep the importance of this day as the focal point of why we take pause on this Monday in May for generations to come. So what is Memorial Day? Or correction, when did Memorial Day start? You might be surprised, but Memorial Day as we know it today is a relatively young holiday. I say this because although the origins date back to the Civil War, our current national holiday is only a few years older than I am, so Memorial Day obviously isn't that old, right? Prior to 1971, what we know today as Memorial Day was observed in various locations, in some cases in various dates around the country. Its main origin took place 3 years after the Civil War ended, when on May 5th, 1868, Major General John A. Logan, the head of the Grand Army of the Republic, issued General Order Number 11, which established Decoration Day as a time for the nation to decorate the graves of the Civil War dead with flowers. He declared that the day should be May 30th. It's believed that this day was chosen because flowers would be in bloom all over the country. General Logan's order called for his post to decorate the graves in 1868 with, and I quote, the choicest flowers of springtime. And he urged, we should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no neglect, no ravages of time testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten, as a people, the cost of a free and undivided republic. The cost of the Civil War was massive. The generally accepted death toll of the Civil War is 620,000. Historians are debating the true numbers today due to poorly kept records by both the Union and Confederates, but even the most conservative numbers put that death toll closer to 750,000. If this is true, that means that 65,000 more Americans died in the Civil War than the total that died in all other American wars. Think about that for a second. World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Spanish-American War, the Revolutionary War, the War on Terrorism, all don't add up to the total of Americans we lost in the Civil War. It's no wonder that Decoration/Memorial Day originated after the aftermath of the Civil War. As such, the first large observance of Decoration Day was held in 1868 at Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. This was attended by various Washington officials, including General and Mrs. Ulysses S. Grant, who presided over those ceremonies. After the speeches were complete, children from the Soldiers and Sailors Orphans Home and members of the Grand Army of the Republic made their way through the cemetery, strewing flowers on both the Union and Confederate graves, reciting prayers and singing hymns. The crowd attending that first Decoration Day ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery was approximately 5,000 people. Then, as of now, small American flags were placed on each grave, which is a tradition that is followed at many cemeteries like this one today, thanks to the support of various organizations like the VA, the VFW, American Legion, and the Scouts, to name a few, all with the support of countless volunteers to go make it happen. I will add here that if you've never visited one of our national cemeteries or Civil War battlefields during Memorial Day weekend, I know it would take you away from this lovely ceremony, but if you've never visited one of those during this weekend, I highly recommend it. Our 155 national cemeteries consist of 5.3 million people and 4 million veterans from the Revolutionary War to the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. There are 9 national cemeteries in the state of Pennsylvania, something I did not know until I was doing a little research for this speech. So personally, I have been to a few over the years in Pennsylvania, Florida, Massachusetts, South Dakota, and several trips to Arlington. I've also visited battlefields, and I always mess this one up, Monocacy, Manassas, Gettysburg, and Antietam during Memorial Day weekend, and it is always truly humbling to see a portion of the true cost of freedom in a hauntingly visual representation by flags lined up in the ground or the headstones of the men and women who have died to provide and ensure it. The Battle of Antietam on September 17, 1862 is viewed as the bloodiest single day in American history, with over 3,600 combined fatalities and 23,000 total casualties. To put that into perspective, Antietam claimed over half the total American lives in a single day than the entire war on terrorism has claimed over the last 22 years. To stand on those fields, see the pictures, and feel the feels is something that's almost impossible to describe and understand unless you've been there. Walking and seeing the battlefield at Little Round Top in Gettysburg, or looking down the countless perfectly lined up headstones in Arlington is amazingly moving and something that every American should experience at some point in time in their lives. Before the first official Decoration Day in 1868, there were many local observances taking place in various parts of the country. One of the first examples was in Columbus, Mississippi, where on April 25, 1866, a group of women visited a cemetery to decorate the graves of the Confederate soldiers who had fallen at the Battle of Shiloh. Nearby were neglected graves of Union soldiers because they were the enemy. Disturbed by this, the sight of those bare graves, the women placed flowers on some of those graves as well. Many cities in the North and South claimed to be the birthplace of Decoration Day in 1866. Both Macon and Columbus, Georgia, claimed the title, as well as Richmond, Virginia. Bowlesburg, Pennsylvania, for those of you that don't know, it's just southeast of State College, claims it began there 2 years earlier. A stone in a Carbondale, Illinois cemetery carries the statement that the first Decoration Day ceremony took place there on April 29, 1866. All in all, approximately 25 places have been named in connection with the origins of our current Memorial Day, many of which are in the South where the most Civil War dead are buried. Regardless of the actual origins, by the 1800s, Decoration Day ceremonies were being held throughout the nation on the 30th of May to honor those that fought and died in the Civil War. It was not until after World War I, however, that was expanded to honor those that have died in all American wars. In 1966, Congress and President Lyndon Johnson declared that Waterloo, New York, to be the birthplace of Memorial Day, where on May 5, 1866, they held a ceremony that honored local veterans that fought in the Civil War. All the businesses closed, flags were flown at half-staff, and supporters of Waterloo's claimed that it had the most significance because other places were either informal, one-time events, or were not community-wide. So in 1971, Congress declared Memorial Day to be a national holiday to be observed in the last Monday in May. So some quick math says that Memorial Day is turning 52 this year. I'm 47, so obviously young holiday. In recent years, the custom has grown in many families to decorate the graves of all departed loved ones on Memorial Day. So I want you to take a moment and think about your first memories of Memorial Day. Some of you may remember Decoration Day, or even still call it that. For others, like me, all you have known is Memorial Day. Regardless of which it is, think back to the very first time you became really conscious of Memorial Day and what this day means to you personally and why. For me, my first memories of Memorial Day are coming here to this cemetery and others with my grandmother to clean up the graves of our family members, to put out the urns and the flowers. At that time, as a young kid, I really only remember Memorial Day being about family relatives, remembering the family relatives, and maintaining their burial plots, and hearing stories about them, and learning a little bit about each of them that was buried here in another local cemetery. When I really started to connect the dots and get a bigger picture of Memorial Day was again here at Sunnyside Cemetery, attending this very ceremony when I played Little League here in Centerville for Dick Alexander. I have no idea how many years before I played that Dick had been doing this, or how many years after I played that this continued. But during that time, he would have us come here in our uniforms, attend this ceremony, and we'd bring flowers to put on the veterans' graves, or as I remembered back then, the ones with the flags beside them. Some kids would bring flowers from the store, others would bring what they picked from their mother's yard, or their mom's flower bed, the woods, or from the trees, and we would take those flowers and decorate the veterans' graves, focusing on the ones that didn't have any flowers. When we got the signal, we dispersed to this cemetery, finding the graves and flags next to them, and to put flowers on as many as we could to honor those who had served that maybe didn't have any family left, or any local family to decorate their graves for Memorial Day. Throughout my career in the Navy, one of the most popular questions I was asked is, why did you join the military? We used to ask this of each other as we were getting to know the people we served with. And I have been asked this by many family, friends, and other people I've met over the years. For some of you, and the veterans buried here, that answer may very well be, I was drafted. They didn't choose to join the military. You were told you had to, and that obligation was accepted and completed. For my generation and the ones that have followed since, it was 100% our choice to join. So I think people are always curious as to why we made that choice. Although there are many very supporting reasons, I think every answer I've heard to that question involves some feeling of patriotism and a call to serve their country. For me, that answer is rooted, again, right here in Sunnyside Cemetery, and is directly related to this ceremony that I first attended as a young Little Leaguer, and now today as a veteran and a speaker for this event. So this full circle journey is why I'm so honored to be talking to you here today. Before today, I'd only shared this full story with a few people over the years, but when I made the decision to enlist in the Navy in the summer of 1995, one of my driving forces in that decision was directly related to my experiences here 7 to 9 years before then, when I was 10 to 12 years old and putting flowers on veterans' graves. From my parents' lilac tree in the borders of our yard that we gathered up. So those graves are special. These people had served our country, and my coach, my family, my church family, and other people I looked up to took the lead to ensure that we understood the importance of Memorial Day and remembering those veterans buried here in their sacrifices. I wanted to contribute to that legacy and leave behind my little piece of it in hopes that someday a Little Leaguer might put a flower on my grave beside my flag that says I did my part to serve this great country of ours, and maybe, just maybe, that would contribute to their reason to serve. So why are we all here today? We all know that freedom isn't free. So we are here to say thank you, to decorate the graves of our fallen, remember those that are buried here, and also say thank you and remember those that made the ultimate sacrifice to gain and keep the freedom and independence that we Americans hold so dear. The origins of special services to honor those who die in war can be found throughout history. The Athenian leader Pericles offered a tribute to the fallen heroes of the Peloponnesian War over 24 centuries ago that easily still rings true today for the 1.1 million Americans who have died in our nation's wars. And I quote, "Not only are they commemorated by columns and inscriptions, but there dwells also an unwritten memorial of them, graven not on stone, but in the hearts of men." It has also been said that a veteran dies twice. Once whenever they take their last breath, and again when they are forgotten or the last time their name is spoken. It is for those people that we are here today, and every year on the last Monday in May, to take a pause, say their name, remember them and their sacrifices, decorate their graves, and stave off that second death for another year, and say thank you. So at the end of the ceremony, you'll see a bucket of flowers up here that I brought. So I invite anyone in the audience or all the kids, come up, grab a flower or two, walk around the cemetery, find a grave with a flag on it, say the name, and decorate their grave for Memorial Day. And thank you.
Thank you, Jason.